Welcome. All right, so let me quiet this music. And let's go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. My name is Robin, and I am a co-founder with the School of Consent, which was created as a home for teaching the Wheel of Consent by Dr. Betty Martin. And so it is a real honor and privilege for me to be able to share this work. And I am so thrilled to be able to be offering this with my friend and colleague, Michael Dresser. So thank you for choosing to step into this with me. And we'll share a little bit more about who we are in a few minutes, but I wanted to just start sharing a bit of context about what this workshop is about and why we're all here. So how many of you are familiar with the Wheel of Consent? Maybe you've attended a training before where it's been discussed, or have studied it on your own or watched the videos. How many have a pretty good sense of what it is? Oh, okay. And how many of you don't know much about it and saw this event and felt something stirring inside of you and felt like, oh, that's where I need to be? Okay, we got a few of those as well. Great. So we have a whole spectrum here of different levels of experience and engagement and understanding of the Wheel of Consent. And what I have found in my journey with this work is that it's actually a lifelong journey. And there are continual layers that I keep peeling away and finding new levels within myself and my own understanding of it. So the Wheel of Consent is a model for relating. And what is beautiful about it is that it actually describes dynamics that are happening all the time, all around us. So it's not about learning something new. It is about learning something new, but it's describing dynamics that we have felt, that we have experienced, that are familiar to us in some way, but yet we haven't exactly had the language to put words to what we're experiencing. And so that's the beauty of this, is that it starts to bring language and a picture to things that we already experience. So you might notice as we start talking about the different dynamics of the wheel or the quadrants of the wheel, and you start to feel it in your body, you might notice this feels familiar. I know this, and now I have a way to describe it and talk about it. So the Wheel of Consent, at its core, is about creating clear agreements. It's about defining two important questions. Who is it for in any interaction, and who's doing the action? And when we look at those two questions, 4 possibilities become apparent. And within that, 2 possibilities for receiving what we want and 2 possibilities for giving. And so we'll be looking and diving into what those different dynamics are and what those different ways of receiving are and giving are. And so you don't need to understand what it all means right now. We'll be going into and experiencing each of those different dynamics and the quadrants. And so learning the Wheel of Consent is about increasing your noticing skills. So your ability to sense in your body and name what's happening, noticing your sensations, noticing your emotions, noticing your thoughts. And it's about consent skills, your ability to connect to what you want and to speak that, to ask for it, and knowing what you don't want, and also knowing what you're willing to engage in for the benefit of another, and what you're not willing to engage in, and being able to articulate that. So we'll be focusing on building both our noticing skills and our consent skills during this time together. So any questions about what you've signed up for with regards to that context? All right. Well, we'll keep adding layers to this as we go along. So we'd like to share a bit about who we are as facilitators and holding this space for you. Michael, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'd be delighted to. My name is Michael Dresser. I'm based in the UK, near the very top of the UK, near the Scottish Highlands. And I'm a certified sexological body worker, and I'm also a certified Wheel of Consent workshop facilitator. And alongside that, I sit on the core School of Consent team alongside Robin and Betty Martin and Carmen. And I would describe my work as intimacy coaching and teaching. And I draw from a lot of places to do that, but the Wheel of Consent is sort of the core of everything that I do. And I would say that for me, intimacy is a bit it's about being able to create healthy relationships of all kinds. And for that reason, I tend to describe the Wheel of Consent almost as a life skill, in fact, that helps us to navigate interactions. And some of those interactions might involve touch, some of them might not do, but I find the Wheel of Consent incredibly useful in virtually any situation. So that's why I've kind of started thinking of it as a life skill. And also in a previous life, I was a writer and a creator of theatre. So communication is really dear to my heart, and I'm quite passionate about how the Wheel of Consent can really help communication to happen more clearly. So that's my passion, and that's what I'm bringing to it. And I'm really excited to be here and to go on the journey alongside you all over the next few weeks.
Thank you. And I'm Robin. As I said, I am one of the co-founders of the School of Consent with Betty Martin. I'm also an intimacy coach, and my real passion is facilitation and bringing groups of people together who are interested in learning more about themselves and living a more joyful, fully expressed life. So my work is really about helping people connect to their body, connect to their sensuality, their sexuality, in order to show up in the world in their fullest expression. And my own journey with this, I spent most of my career working in the environmental sector for an international nonprofit and was working in leadership development. And in 2012, found myself burned out and sick, which really caused me to slow down the pace of my life. And I started to look inward and realize how disconnected I was from my body, from my joy, from my passion. Personally, like the work that I was doing in the world, I was very passionate about and committed to. But I found that I was giving everything away and really ignoring my own needs and desires. And so my life started to move in this different direction as I went on my own personal exploration of what does it mean to be alive and in this body, and noticing the ways that I was disconnected from parts of myself. And so then I became really passionate about supporting others on that journey. Which led me to the Wheel of Consent about 5 years ago. And when that piece came in, I just realized what an important foundation understanding consent and coming into choice is in everything we do, from our intimate relating to relating with friends and colleagues, relating within our communities, and within society as a whole. And so for me, it feels like this work ripples out from the personal to the interpersonal to the systemic. And so that's what I'm passionate about, is seeing the ways that these different worlds intersect and combine. So that's me in a nutshell. And we also have Joshua Searle White, who is here as our tech support. Josh, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi to everybody. I'm here to help. I've been on a lot of Zoom calls. I've been an administrator of Zoom calls for about 20 minutes now, and so I'm a highly trained expert. So just check any questions you have with me, and we'll sort it out.
So at any point, if you have technical questions, feel free to message Josh directly, and he will be here to support our journey here. So where we are going today, we are starting to build the foundation for the work that we'll be doing together. And so in order to do that, we need to create a group field of agreements. And so we'll be talking about that. And then for the second part of our class today, we'll be talking about the nervous system and how to create a felt sense of safety in the body. So for any of this work around consent and intimacy and connection, it requires a sense of safety. And so we'll provide a picture and an overview of the nervous system so that we have that as a map as we carry on through these next 6 weeks together, as a way for you to reflect on your own nervous system and become more aware of what you need in order to create that sense of safety for yourself. And so that's what we'll be focusing on in the second half of our session today. There's a lot more talking today because we are establishing our group and our agreements. And as we carry on in the weeks to come, it will be much more practical and experiential. So just to let you know that as well. And again, feel free to move, get comfortable, take care of whatever you need for our time together. So before we go into our agreements, I want to just go over a couple logistical aspects. And so I did mention the recording that we are recording, and you'll have access to this through the duration of the course. The recording will pick up your voice. And so if you don't want your voice on the recording, you can just say, hey, I'd like to share, but can you pause the recording? And we can pause it before you share, if that makes you feel more comfortable in sharing. You also can share your thoughts and your comments in the chat box, and we can read that out anonymously. So you have a few options in being able to share your experience with the group, which always creates a lot more richness as we hear from one another. We have 6 sessions together. So each of our calls will be 2 hours at the same time each week, same Zoom link. And then we'll have a number of home practices that you can choose to engage in between sessions. These are all your choice. You choose whether you want to engage with those activities or not. And what we have found is that those individuals who do take on some of these practices in between sessions, it's really a way of deepening your experience and your learning. So it's there for your benefit, and you choose how you'd like to engage with that. We also have a private Facebook group that we will invite you into after this course or after this call. It includes everybody who's on this call with us, and we have another group that meets on Wednesdays. And so both of those groups are combined in this private Facebook group. So you may see a few names and faces that you're not familiar with, and they're coming from that other group. So the Facebook group will also, it will list all of the home practices, other resources that might be useful. It's a place where you can connect with each other, where you can share what you're noticing and experiencing. So it's there for your learning. I'm aware that not everybody is on Facebook or wants to be on Facebook. And so we also will be emailing after each class. We'll email out the recording and all of the home practices by email as well. So you'll still get that information and have those two options as well. From our last class, a number of people requested at the end, said it would have been really helpful to have a buddy from the course to engage with during the class or between the classes and to do some of the home practices with. So we have created a post in the Facebook group that if you would like a buddy, then you can put your name and where you are in the world, and you can find each other and find someone to pair up with. You also can pair up with friends in your life. If you have a partner, you can introduce them to these practices and do it with people outside of the course as you choose. The more people you practice with, the more opportunities there are to notice things about yourself, and you'll notice different things arise with different people. So we also encourage you to practice and play with as many people as possible. And then finally, we encourage you to really take care of yourself, not only during our time together on the call, but between sessions. We'll talk a bit about resourcing today, and we'll actually have a home practice where we'll invite you to reflect on what are ways that you can resource yourself. And so that is also part of the learning and this journey is self-care. I think that's it for our logistics. So I'll pass it over to you, Michael, for our agreements.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to outline some of the pieces that we want to put together into our agreement as a group, and then we'll ask for some kind of indication of agreement from all of us before we move forward. So the first thing I'd like to outline is confidentiality. So we want this space to feel as safe as it can do for everybody who's in it. So, and when you're in it, when we're in this space, we will be inviting you to share your experiences. So we would invite you not to share any identifying details of anybody else who's in this group outside the calls, and not to share anybody else's experience that's been shared in this group. By all means, you're really welcome to share your own experiences, your own noticings, to talk about those with your friends or family or anybody else outside this group, but please don't identify anybody else who's in the group or anything that anybody else in the group has shared outside this group. And as we go through the sessions together, feelings may come up of all kinds, and they are really welcome. So you may notice emotions, other kinds of feelings coming up for you, and you may choose to share about those, and everything that you notice is welcome. The one thing that we would ask is that it is not to have no aggressive behavior, either towards yourself or towards other people. So aggressive behavior is not welcome, but other feelings and other emotions are welcome in this space. And everything that we're doing in the next few weeks is an experiment. It's an opportunity to notice. It's an opportunity to explore. And there are many different ways that you can do that. So there are lots of different ways that you can participate over the coming sessions. So you might choose to participate by actively joining in an exercise. You might choose to participate by witnessing and not actively taking part. You might choose to participate by journaling, by stepping out of an exercise and reflecting with your own feelings and doing some journaling. You might choose to participate with your camera off or your camera on. You might choose to take a break. That's also participation. So the important thing with all of this is it's about the choice. It's about noticing what you need for yourself and making choices around that. So whatever is going to help you to participate the best way that you can at any given moment. And all of that is valid. So there are lots of different ways you can participate. Self-care is also important. So we invite you to be responsible for taking care of your own needs, for water, for the toilet, for taking a break, stepping in and out of exercises. So noticing what your nervous system needs, noticing what you need to be able to be well regulated, and taking action for that, whatever you need to do in order to self-care at any point. So I know from my experience, I actually took part in the last time that Robin ran this as a participant, and for me, being able to turn my camera off really helped me to stay engaged and be present more than having my camera on. So I know from experience that there are lots of different ways of participating and being responsible for self-care. Inclusivity, we wanted to say a little bit around this. So we're a community of diverse identities and experiences from all different parts of the world. We've got people from lots of different countries here. And some of those identities will be visible and some of them may be invisible. So for example, gender or sexuality or trauma. So people's experiences with trauma may form part of their identity, but that's not necessarily visible. So each experience and identity that's present in this group over the course is really welcome and really valid. And we will endeavour as a team to be as inclusive and respectful as possible. And we would invite you all to also be as inclusive and respectful as you can be. And one way that can be helpful to do that is to really speak from experience, so speak from your own experience. So using what we call I statements. So rather than using generalizations or concepts or saying you always do this or this kind of person always does that, to notice your own experience with something and to speak from that. So to say, I notice that I feel this way about a certain thing, or I have had this experience as I've gone through my life or in this moment. And the final technical thing, I think Robin's just put this in the chat. So we are recording this, as we've noted. So we would ask you that you don't make additional recordings on your own computer or take any still images or photographs from the screen, so that the only recording is the one that we're making. So what we'd like to do is to, first of all, ask if there's any questions around any of that, anything that's not clear around any of that, and then we'd like to get your agreement just by raising a hand. So firstly, are there any questions about anything that's not clear that you'd like me to go? Yes, Hamid.
Will the recording be only during the 6 weeks, or will it just, we will all have the recordings for a lifetime or 1 year, or how long is the recording available?
So they're available for the duration of the course and then 2 weeks after that.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions about any of the agreements? Okay, so if we could get a raised hand if you are willing to sign up to those agreements, it would be great. Fantastic. I think I can see a raised hand from everybody. Great, wonderful. Okay, so let's get to know each other a little bit better. So we'd like to spend a little bit of time giving you an opportunity to share a little bit about who you are and why you're here, what's brought you here. So we're going to invite everybody to have 45 seconds to speak about what's brought them here. And I'll run through a couple of things that we'd like to invite you to speak about if you feel moved to. So we'd like to invite you to share your name and your pronoun. So your pronoun, for anybody who's not familiar, is how you would like to be referred to in the third person. So that might be he, it might be she, it might be they, or it might be something else. So how you would like to be referred to in the third person. We'd like to invite you to share an intention that you have for this course, one intention that you're bringing with you for this course. We'd like you to invite you to share one barrier that you can identify that might get in the way of your participation, and also one thing that you could do to resource your participation. So some examples of that might be, so a barrier might be you've literally just run in the door from work and you've had a really busy day and you're really tired. So something that might help you feel resourced to be as engaged as possible might be to turn your video off so that you can be a little bit more relaxed, or you can move around without distracting people or feeling like you're being watched. Or a barrier for you might be that English isn't your first or primary language. So in which case something that might help you feel more resourced, to be engaged, might be to ask us to repeat something if you don't understand it, or ask us to slow down if we're speaking too fast. So I'll run through that list again, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to time 45 seconds, and I'm going to invite us just to spend that 45 seconds just as an opportunity to reflect for yourself about some of the things that you might choose to share. And also to give a felt sense of how 45 seconds feels, because it's going to feel different for each of us in our bodies. So we've got a felt sense of how long that is. And then I'll set a timer and you'll hear that at the end of the 45 seconds. So just to run through the list again of what we'd like to invite you to share, and I can see that Robin's put that in the chat as well, so you can refer to it there. So your name and your pronoun, one intention that you have for this course, one barrier that might get in the way of your participation, and one thing that you can do to resource your participation. And so I'm going to set the timer. And yeah, before we start, are there any questions or anything that's unclear for anybody before we share a 45-second reflection together? Great. Looks like that's landed for everybody. Okay, so I'm going to time 45 seconds now, and I'd invite you in your own way just to reflect for yourself what you might want to share when it's your turn to speak.
I can go.
So we're waiting for 45 seconds just to see how that feels for everybody, and then I'll invite people individually to speak.
Okay, so may I start?
If we get to the end of the 45 seconds,
Oh,
and then
sorry.
yeah, so we're timing 45 seconds. Okay, so that was 45 seconds. So that's how long we've got each to speak, and we'll be inviting you to try and stay as within that as possible, and being mindful that the longer we take, the longer that impacts on other people's turns. Hamed, if you would like, if you have a desire to start, then I'm very happy to start with you, and then I'll work my way through my screen and invite people by name, and you can choose to pass if you're not feeling like it's your turn, and we can come back to you, or you can pass entirely. So, Hamed, whenever you're ready, 45 seconds.
Yes. My name is Hamed. The intention of participation is to learn how to, or to experience how the online version of this is. Because I'm also a Wheel of Consent facilitator and never trusted really the online stuff and judged it. And then I said, okay, I want to give it a try. I want to be able to work with this online, but first I want to get the shower myself properly to see if I can manage it or no, because I like the physical meetings where I guide people. So yeah, and you can call me he in the third person. And the barrier that could stop me is that I'm traveling a lot and I will not be able to participate all the calls, but I will try my best. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Hamid. Okay, so the next person on my screen is Sasha. Are you willing to share?
Yes. My name's Sasha. I go by she, her pronouns. And my intention for the course, I really just want to experience what willing and not willing feels like for me, because I often am just yes, yes, yes. And then I realize after the experience that that was actually like a no for me. So kind of being more aware as the sensations come. So I can make better choices. And a barrier, I have 2 dogs that are loud sometimes. So, but the way I'm handling it now, I took them for a long walk around the lake this morning and they're really tired. So that should be good. And if that doesn't work, then I'll plan to do it outside of the house. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing. So the next person I have on my screen is Yamuna. Would you be willing to share next?
Yes, I am Yamuna and I am a she. My intention is to learn deeper and more. And well, my real intention is I want to teach it. I am a math teacher and I also teach psychology at a secondary school. And I would really like to introduce the kids to this stuff as well. But I don't know if I learned that, so I'll shower first, like Hamid is doing. One barrier is the internet, the distance. I did a course on the Polyvagal Theory and I felt the distance all the time. I can't touch you. So, but to engage, I think that really helps, and to be curious and to, well, like that. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And also one thing I forgot to say that you can share as well is where in the world you are, because we have people from all over.
I am from the Netherlands.
The Netherlands, great, thank you. So the next person I have on my screen is Audrey. Would you be willing to share next?
Yes, my name is Audrey and I'm a she. I'm from Vilnius in Lithuania, and my intention for this course is to understand will of consent better, to understand it with my body, and also I would like to teach it because I facilitate cuddle workshops in Vilnius, so I would like to put some principles in my workshops. And the barrier is that English is not my native language. And also I'm quite shy. So I'll be using off video quite a lot. And that's it. I'm happy to be here.
Great, thank you. So the next person I have on my screen is Kieran. Would you be willing to share next?
Yeah, sure. My name's Kieran. My pronoun is he. I'm actually based in central Scotland, not as far as north as Michael. I'm around the middle. And intention for me, it's a really good question. I think it's probably just to increase my awareness, just in everyday life. And I think over 6 weeks, I imagine that would be really useful to do that. In terms of barriers, no, I can't really think of any barriers. And I think of any resources would just be to, yeah, just look after myself, take regular breaks. 2 hours in front of a screen is a long time for me. So just take plenty of breaks. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So the next person I have on my screen is Hannah. Would you be willing to share next?
Hello, yes, sure. I'm Hannah. I'm from, I'm Hannah. I go by she or her. I am between, I'm now in Italy, and I will at some other moments be in Germany. I'm German, Italo-German. Intentions for the whole course, mainly to get more of an awareness of my own boundaries, learning to also say no without necessarily shutting down, but actually staying engaged and just accepting and surrendering a no. And then in terms of barriers, I think there's something about my travels now during the summertime. So yeah, I just will be in different situations, connections, that's all.
Great,
But I will do my best.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, I have Christine on my screen next. Would you be willing to share?
Hello everybody, I'm Christine. I'm in the UK, in Bristol, and I go by she or her. My intention is to seek liberation for myself. I'm of Chinese parentage but born in Britain, so my barriers are habits and culture. So my resolution is really to get past my stuckness at whatever level it is, and to engender more self-compassion. Thank you.
Great, thank you for sharing. So I have Mike next on my screen. Would you be willing to share next?
Yes, my name is Mike. I'm in Switzerland, and I participated in the previous course, and that's why I'm here. I would like to practice more. So that's my intention. My barrier is more the lack of practice in between the sessions, which I would like to increase. And the resource would be a body. So that's, I look forward to the post that you mentioned, Robin.
Great, thank you, Mike. I have Adam on my screen next. Would you be willing to share?
Sure, hi, I'm Adam. I'm in London. You know, I felt like I don't want to give my pronoun, and then I felt I'm willing to give my pronoun. And then I heard people say, I am she and I am he, and it felt good. So I'm going to say, I am he. And that felt so good. My barrier is, oh, why am I here? I want to peel off some more layers. I'm already training in the Wheel of Consent to be a facilitator, and I want to practice it more and be with it more. And my barrier, like, I want to bring my whole self. So it felt really good to just feel all that stuff around the pronoun at the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Adam. So I have Franny on my screen next. Would you be willing to share?
Yes, hi everybody. I am Franny and my pronouns are she and her. I'm from London and I'm currently in Koh Phangan in Thailand. And one intention I have for this course is I really want to deepen my felt sense, and I would really like to strengthen my skills of recognizing and expressing my needs. Barrier might be the time difference before I go back to Europe in a few weeks. It's nearly midnight here. And I imagine I can resource my participation by managing my energy through the day and knowing that I can go off camera. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Franny. Okay, I have Michelle next on my screen. Would you be willing to share?
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm currently in London. I am a she, her. And my intention for this is to learn and embody so I can enjoy deeper connections with more depth, clarity, and safety. first with myself and then with others. I feel like a barrier. Yeah, I'm in quite a complicated relationship at the moment, and like location of our future is kind of all like up in the air. So it's quite intense in my mind. So that feels like a barrier. But to be able to resource myself, I'm gonna switch off my phone during this time to try and not be engaging in any conversations around this.
Great, thank you, Michelle. I have Emma next on my screen. Would you be willing to share?
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm in Hertfordshire in England. She, her pronouns I use, and my intention for this course is to become more comfortable with expressing my consent, and because I feel it in my body, but it's the getting it out, it's the verbalizing it, and the right, you know, I have the right sort of thing to really own my no. Yeah, that feels good. My barrier is I am a little bit anxious about it. I have a health condition, so I will need breaks, and I will resource myself by taking breaks and taking the camera off. So I'm really grateful to hear that already, and I'll be okay with that. Thanks. Thank you for listening. Hi, everybody.
Great, thank you. Okay, I have Amanda next on my screen. Would you be willing to share?
Yes, my pronouns are she and her. I live in Vancouver, BC. One of my intentions is to continue to strengthen my ability to feel safe when going slow, like feeling safer going slower. One of my barriers is that I have a traumatic past with the coaching world, and some of the languaging is triggering for me. I'm not sure about the resourcing yet. I'm going to give that some thought and report back.
Thank you, Amanda. And I think you have Naveed with you as well.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Would you be willing to share? Hi.
Yeah, thank you. Name's Naveed, and the pronouns I go by are he and him. And I live in Florida, and I'm currently not in Florida. I'm in Vancouver. And the intention for me is to be not only in full support of my partner, really creating and having a safe environment for her own recovery and everything that she's dealing with, but also for me, you know, I'm just now on the other side of a 22-year marriage, and I noticed how much of that marriage I didn't practice consent for myself, or really in honoring consent with my then partner. So I really, there's a past that I don't want to carry into my future, in my future relationship. So I'm really here intending for that. Really the only barrier I see is my own experience in training and development. So much like Amanda, I've had 15 years in being a facilitator. And so there's a lot that I know, and the more I know, as the saying goes, can get in the way of actually learning. So to constantly empty myself out, and I'll leverage my relationship here with Amanda to do that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I have Adrienne on my screen next. Would you be willing to share? Would you be willing to share, Adrienne? Sorry, I didn't see, was that a yes or a no? Oh, I'm not sure if Adrienne can hear. You're muted, Adrienne. If you would like to share, we can't hear you.
Okay, I think we've just discovered my primary barrier. Turning on my speaker. I'm also very hard of hearing, so I didn't actually hear you say my name. So I'm going to have to deal with that, but I can put my iPad on Bluetooth in the future, and that will hopefully solve the problem. So I am she. It feels good to say that. And my intention is to try to increase my overall self-awareness, my felt sense, to own it, because I have this bad habit in the past of always overriding my truth and being basically in the mode of people pleasing and agreeing to things without actually agreeing within myself. So I want to increase my own self-awareness and own my truth, and only make agreements from a place of authentic consent, as opposed to some sort of autopilot of being, Carol Gilligan calls the tyranny of the sweet and kind. I just, I really need to basically learn skills to tap into my truth. And then my desire would be to speak from that truth with authenticity and power. And the barriers, hearing, and also sometimes I find it difficult to just sit and stare at a screen for 2 hours. So what I've done sometimes is just take it on the road, just go for a walk and listen, on my phone. And that way I can actually take it in better sometimes. And so I might try that some. Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, I have Lizzie on my screen next. Would you be willing to share?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm Lizzie. I go by she or her. I'm in Vancouver, Canada as well. And my intention is to learn what my no is and how to stand in it. I remember Sasha said a little earlier that she has the habit of realizing after the fact that that it was actually a no, and I have that same issue. So I'm hoping to work on that. And a barrier is that I have a 5-year-old son, and he is transferred back to his dad at like 15 minutes or so before this starts. So the way that I can resource that is by going to bed earlier and making sure that he's ready to go like right on time. So thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, I have Julia on my screen next. Would you be willing to share?
Hi everyone, my name is Julia and I'm also from Vancouver, Canada. Pronouns are she and her. And my intention is to get even deeper connected to my yeses and nos, and particularly to communicate them unapologetically to those that are closest and most dearest to me. I find that sometimes is still a space that can feel challenging. In terms of barriers, sitting in front of a screen for 2 hours can be challenging. So I'm definitely going to be popping off and moving my body and doing whatever I need to do to support myself. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I have Monsoon next on my screen. Would you be willing to share?
I would, thank you, Michael. My name is Monsoon. I'm in New Delhi, India. I'm not a fan of pronouns, but since I've been asked, I shall answer that she and her. My intention is really to experience freedom, especially at a time when both politically we are under different kind of regimentation, and during COVID, a different kind of regimentation. So I need to flex those freedom muscles a bit. I think the other interesting thing for me is that in my conversations with Betty about bringing this work to India, there's a real interest in how yes means maybe and maybe means no. So just learning culturally what no means. So, and I've run out of time. So when my barriers occur, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have Randolph next on my screen. Would you be willing to share?
Yes, I go by Ran. I'm here in Luxembourg. My pronouns are he, him. And my intentions for this course are to just gain more understanding of the will of consent. I've been through a couple of the class already. I don't really feel there are any barriers to being in this group. I love the diversity that's in the group, although sometimes being on screen for 2 hours might be a little bit, so I might turn off the video just to sit back and really take everything in. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I have Theo next on my screen. Would you be willing to share?
My name is Theo. Pronouns are they, them. I'm non-binary, trans. I'm in Berlin right now, but moved in the last year from Montreal. It's nice to connect with people not in North America. An intention is, I think, generally to like work on embodiment and safety and to play with that in a container with some new tools. And barrier, I am like a intense trauma survivor, and so like tend to dissociate a lot, and I'm definitely tracking. I'm kind of like this when the screen is on. So I'll often have my video off, I think, but I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. I think I've reached everybody. Is there anybody I've missed? There are a few sort of things where people moved around as the videos went on and off. So if anybody hasn't had an opportunity to share and you would like to, please let me know. Great. Thank you all for sharing a little bit about yourself. It's great to meet you all and hear what's brought you here and what you're looking for from our time together. And I'm going to hand over to Robin to talk a little bit more about one final thing around the dynamics of the group before we move on.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Okay, I'm unmuted. Oh, it's so good to hear from everybody, and I'm feeling so much appreciation for where you all are, where you're coming from. And so this final piece, we want to just take a few minutes and give an opportunity to talk about any dynamics in the room that might impact your ability to step in and participate. And so we talked about the various identities that we all have, and each of us is sitting with our own identities from the position that we're in this space. So if there's anything that you want to voice or drop into the space that will help you be more present, we have a few minutes to do that. So an example would be, there are some identities that we hold that are visible. We can see, like the color of our skin. There are some identities that we can't see, but we might assume about somebody, which might be our sexual orientation. So, for myself, I will just name that I'm here in the position of a facilitator. And so that's a role that I take on within this group. And at the same time, some of my colleagues are here in this space. And so there are different power dynamics at play, that I have a position of power as the facilitator in this group. And I'm also human, and I have my own needs and desires. And so holding those aspects of myself as I am present here with you. I'm a white woman. I'm based in the United States, and something that's present for me is this current period of racial upheaval and bringing to light racial injustices within this country. And that's something that's very present for me. And so that's part of a bigger context that I'm sitting with as I'm here with you. I also want a presence that we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and that's impacting our ability for connection, our livelihoods, how we relate with those we love, how we relate in community. And that impacts all of us differently and brings stuff up. And so just to name that that's also part of the greater context that we're working within. So is there anything else that any of you feel you want to name and presence for yourself and what you're sitting with that will help you show up more? Yeah, Hamid.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this topic. Yeah, even though my intention is to learn or to see how this online facilitation is, but I would like to give myself full participation, just to receive and not say, oh, I know this. Yeah, okay, oh, that's good to copy. Oh, I could do better than that, or this or that. So I just want to let go of my facilitation head to the side. I just want to be fully receiving this with new eyes. And also something that comes up is a fear is that just because since I got kind of ordered like, okay, you're a facilitator, I'm facilitating, there's like hard pressure about consent in all areas about my life. So I'm afraid to share where I'm not in consent, where I'm still in the shadows, and to say, okay, just because I teach you, I facilitate this doesn't mean that I have all my stuff figured out in the wheel. So I would like to be vulnerable and to say, okay, yeah, that's an edgy thing, but I would like to bring it.
Thank you. Anything else that feels present or alive for you?
I'll say one. I noticed for myself in the past that I definitely struggle or have struggled, still learning not to struggle as much with authority, and find it, yeah, like we're not in a room, so it's kind of maybe not so present, but yeah, just I have quite a lot of triggers around people in authority. So just to bring that and share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of another, that we're not physically in a room with each other, that we're all sitting in our own private spaces, and that we're virtually together. And that's different from physically being together. I'm aware that I am in a space where I don't have a lot of physical touch with other people, and I haven't for 4 months. and noticing how that impacts my body and my nervous system and my sense of calm and ease. And so that's something that's present and alive for me that may be for others as well. So you may notice other things that are present for you, or you become aware of as we continue on. And if something arises that you want to name and voice, then please feel welcome to do so. So we're going to take a 5-minute movement break. And I will put on a song. Feel free to stand up if you feel the desire to, stretch, get some water, use the washroom. And then we're going to come back and we'll have a bit of theory about the nervous system. So if you want to take some notes, have a notebook and pen handy, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. So we're going to talk about the nervous system. And the reason we talk about the nervous system in a class on consent is that our nervous system is an important ally in our ability to create consent. And in fact, we need to feel a sense of safety in our body in order to be at choice. And we can't make agreements if we're not at choice. And so understanding what's happening in our nervous system, becoming aware of where we are within our different neurological states, is a way to help us come back to and create a sense of safety. And from that place, we can engage with others and we can create clear consensual agreements. So I'd like to talk about a theory of the nervous system that's used in a lot of trauma therapy and somatic therapy. And it is called the Polyvagal Theory. So how many have heard of or are familiar with the Polyvagal Theory? Few, great. And for how many are you thinking poly what? Never heard of it? Okay, great. So the polyvagal theory is a relatively new theory of how the nervous system functions. And it was created by Dr. Stephen Porges, who is a neuroscientist, in I think it was the early 90s that he came out with this theory of how the nervous system functions. So up until this point in time, most of us were taught about the sympathetic nervous system, which is our mobilization. It's the fight or flight response. And then we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the down-regulated rest, relaxation, rejuvenation. And the idea was that it was about finding this place of homeostasis or balance between the two. And so Stephen Porges basically has turned that theory on its side, if you will. And he's created a hierarchical structure and added a third layer to the parasympathetic and sympathetic understanding of that. So I'm going to share my screen. So with the polyvagal theory, essentially, Stephen Porges talks about our nervous system's ability to sense our environment and determine if we are not safe or if we're safe. And so if we're not feeling safe, it creates a stress response in our body. If we're feeling safe, we have more of a sense of ease in our nervous system. And so he describes this sensory process as something called neuroception. So it's our nervous system perceiving our environment through all of our senses to determine, am I safe in this moment or am I not safe? And so at the top level of this hierarchy is our social engagement system. And the social engagement system is connected to our neocortex. So it's our most developed part of our brain. It's our ability to communicate, to create social contracts, social agreements. It's our ability to engage with others and create this sense of safety, not only within ourselves, but within a group. And so this social engagement system is connected to our parasympathetic nervous system through our vagus nerve. And it is specifically our vagus nerve from our chest up through our face. And so it's connected to our nerves, our muscles in our face. It's our eye muscles, our ear muscles, through our jaw, our neck, down into our chest. It's connected to our heart, our lungs. So it impacts when we are connecting with another. We're noticing, are we making eye contact with another? And that's a way of creating a sense of safety, feeling seen. It's connected to our breath. So can we take in a deep breath and relax? So it's eye contact. It's the sound of our voice. When I speak, am I speaking in a way that feels inviting and engaging? Or do you sense some aggression in my voice? And so these are different cues that our nervous system is looking for. And then our body reacts accordingly. So when we're not feeling safe, or when our body's in a stress response within our social engagement system, this might be if there's an accident and we need to communicate with first responders about what's happening. This is crisis communication. Or it might be that we're feeling some stress and we're wanting to engage, but we don't exactly feel safe. And so we try and be nice. We become a little bit of a pleaser. For me, that came from my good girl. Like, if I just say the right things, then I'll be loved, I'll be seen, I'll be appreciated. So these are our reactions that are happening, sometimes voluntarily, oftentimes involuntarily. So it's a response that naturally happens in order to create that sense of safety. So then when we're feeling more resourced, this is where we use language. We create social connection, social fabric. This is connected within our body to our breath, to the sound of our voice, the way that we use our voice. In sex, this is the afterglow effect. And this social engagement develops in our first year of existence. So this is where we are connecting with our caregiver. Does our caregiver pick us up when we cry? Do they hold us? It's through touch and the release of oxytocin. It's through our connection through breastfeeding. So it's when we look at our caregiver, do they smile at us? So it's seeing reactions and learning to smile by seeing someone smile. So we first learn to co-regulate, and this helps develop this part of our nervous system. So then if we're not feeling safe and we can't establish this sense of safety and ease, then our nervous system moves into another layer, another level of the hierarchy. And that's our sympathetic nervous system. This is connected to our limbic brain, which is our emotions, our animal body. And this is where we mobilize because we're feeling a sense of danger. So this is our fight response and our flight response. So either we become defensive and we want to push against, we move toward with that maybe anger or aggression. Or this is the place where we respond by moving away from. So the flight response, we want to just get out of the situation. This is the place where we discharge. So there's a buildup of adrenaline, and a place where we need to discharge that accumulation of hormones and chemicals that happens with that reaction. And if we're in this place of mobilizing, ultimately the intention is to mobilize, to move back into this place of social engagement and safety. If for some reason we aren't able to move there, then our body has another response reflex, and that's moving back into the parasympathetic nervous system. And in this case, it is from the diaphragm down, so subdiaphragm. So the vagus nerve is connected to our guts in a body with a cervix. The vagus nerve connects all the way down to the cervix. So in this place, our responses slow down, our heart rate slows down, our blood pressure decreases, our breath slows down. Whereas in the sympathetic, there's this activation and speeding up. In the parasympathetic, we start to immobilize, and it's immobilization with a sense of danger. This is where we might dissociate. If you've ever had an experience where you feel like you're moving out of your body. And this is the place of shock. So if we're in an accident, oftentimes we'll go into a shock response. And this is often a place of sleep disorders as well. So this can be insomnia. This is where we experience a sense of indecisiveness or tend to seclude ourselves, where we might experience depression. And so again, our body's natural response is to find its way back to social engagement. So from this place, and then there's a hybrid state between mobilization and immobilization, and that's the freeze response. So imagine you may have heard or seen this idea of the deer in the headlights. So if a deer runs across the road and a car is coming and the deer sees the headlights, it creates a freeze response. So the body is mobilized, the muscles are contracting, and yet it can't move. So that's this heightened state of being ready to mobilize and then freezing. So then when we move over into the side of feeling safe, of feeling resourced, we can also access different states within our nervous system. So we can move from social engagement into mobilization with safety. So this is also part of the sympathetic nervous system. This is the place where we engage in recreation, in muscular activities. That might be working out, going for a run. This is where we tend to go in our daytime activities. So we might be engaging with people, we might be working. And so this is where we have increased mobilization toward activities that we choose to engage in. This is also the place of climax in sex. And so from this place, we can then move into a state of immobilization with safety. So again, this is part of the parasympathetic, the dorsal vagus or subdiaphragm. And in this place of immobilization with safety, this is where we rest, where we rebuild, where we rejuvenate, This is where we go when we're in deep meditation. We drop into this parasympathetic response that is very rejuvenating and regenerating. In sex, this is the place of arousal in the nervous system. So again, this is connected to our brainstem, which is the most ancient part of our brain development. This is the place of digestion and where we go when we're sleeping. So this is an important place that our nervous system needs to be able to access in order to replenish itself. And it's also the most vulnerable place we can go in our nervous system because we are in this place of being immobile. There are greater risks that we can experience to our sense of safety. So it's important when we go into this place, we can't go there unless we feel totally safe. And so again, we can move between these different states when feeling safe. So between social engagement and mobilization is a hybrid state, which is a state of play. So animals are good at this, kids are good at this. As adults, we tend to become less connected to our ability to play. So it's our ability to engage with another in a playful state of being in joy in our own experience and staying in connection with another in their experience. And then we also have a hybrid state between social engagement and immobilization. And this is where we experience intimacy, connection with another. So this might be with a lover, with a friend. It's where we establish a sense of connection, of trust, of safety, and then we can drop into this place of stillness, either in our own experience or in connection with another. All of these states, we're constantly moving between these different states in our nervous system. So I could be in a place of mobilizing and feeling safe, and then something happens. I hear a loud crash, and my nervous system reacts, and I might move into a place of mobilizing, but feeling under stress. If you imagine a football match, and they're playing the game and everything's good, and then someone gets tripped, and they stand up and they start a fight. And so they're moving from being mobilized with safety to mobilizing with danger. And then they might talk it out and pat each other on the back and then go back to playing the game. If I hear a loud crash, I might move from being mobilized down into a place of dissociation. I might check out, I might freeze. So we can quickly move to one of these other states. Likewise, from this place of immobilization with safety, I can quickly move into being immobilized and not feeling safe, or mobilizing with danger. What is not possible is to move from this place of immobilization with danger into a place of immobilization with safety. We can't directly go from being immobile and not feeling safe to immobile and feeling safe. We have to move through our sympathetic nervous system. We have to first mobilize and create that sense of safety again in order to drop into this place of being immobile with safety. So then, how does the wheel of consent?
Robin, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Want to continue?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, there are two questions. The one I really have to be, if you are in this immobilization with danger, do you really have to move? So is this sympathetic also about really moving, or is it only can you do it without moving?
Stephen Porges talks about this need to mobilize. And that doesn't necessarily mean we have to stand up and jump around. But it might be, you know, I'm laying on the ground and feeling like, oh, I can't even do anything. So I might just slowly bring my attention to moving my fingers and notice what that does. Or I might just slowly like sway side to side. But there is a movement that is necessary to help move us from this place of immobilization.
Okay. And one other question, is this something that is, this whole theory, is it something that are discussions about it, or is it something that's taught in every school? Is it, I mean, it seems so logical when you tell me, and you have this picture, it seems so logical, but is it something that scientists, for example, discuss about?
Well, how many of, I would put that back to the group, like, where did you all hear about this? So often, there's a lot of information that's available about this. Stephen Porges has a book called The Polyvagal Theory, which is quite dense. He also has a lot of YouTube videos, interviews with people, which I would highly recommend. If you just do a Google search for Polyvagal Theory and Stephen Porges, you'll come up with a whole list of videos that are much more digestible. It is a very logical description, and what I find to be very helpful, and I don't know that it's taught in schools and very widely. It is taught within particular professions, particularly those working with the body, working with somatics. You know, some psychologists more, or it's becoming more used in the field of psychology, definitely in the field of touch. So it's out there, and it's not completely widely recognized and utilized.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll have a chance for more questions in just a minute. Let me just finish this last little piece of how the wheel of consent fits into this. So the wheel of consent is about creating agreements. It's about choice. It's about sovereignty over our body. And so all of that is only accessible when we are on this safe side of the nervous system. And the wheel of consent, what I have found, is actually a tool in helping to create that sense of safety by having clear agreements, by articulating what it is I want and what I'm willing to engage in. And then with that agreement, it creates a container in which I can engage. I can mobilize to interact with another. I can immobilize with another and feel safe in that connection. And so this is why it feels like an important pillar in being able to understand the wheel of consent. It's first being able to understand what's happening in our nervous system. So with this map, in any given moment, I can start to notice within my own body, my own system, what am I experiencing right now? Am I feeling some stress, some agitation? Am I feeling anxiety? And I don't know about you, but for me, I've had a lot more anxiety the last few months. When I read the news, I feel anxiety in my body. I feel some depression, seeing what's happening in the world around me. And so knowing that, then I can start to make choices. Okay, I'm having this stress response. What do I personally need to regulate my nervous system, to come back into this place of ease and connection and safety? And so we have two ways of doing that. We can either self-regulate, so we have tools to help ourselves feel calmer and safer. That might be, I need to just slow down and take a few deep breaths. I notice I get excited and I don't breathe as much. And so if I just settle in and I take a few breaths. Or it might be, I need to take a nap and just let my body rest. It might be that I need to move my body. So if I get in a fight with my lover, then I have to mobilize. I have to move, physically move my body. That might be going for a run or a walk. It might be stomping my feet on the ground. It might be screaming at the trees, but I have to mobilize. And so we all have tools. There are things you might be familiar with, like, oh yeah, this is what I do. There might be things that you're doing that you're not even aware that that's your way of self-regulating. And so just bringing more awareness to what's your go-to, what are your tools, and then adding more tools as you become more aware, like, oh yeah, if I just slow down and pay attention to my breath. There are also ways that we can co-regulate with others. So it's using the resources of another to help calm myself. So if I'm upset, I might call a friend and say, hey, can you listen to me for 10 minutes? I just need to vent and get this off my chest. You don't have to do anything, just listen. Or it might be asking, can you just put your arms around me and hold me for a few minutes? I really just need to feel like somebody's got me. Or can you tell me that you got my back? So there are ways that we can resource through connection with another. And so I will pause there, and any questions? No, that's pretty dense. Is that useful? See some nods. All right. So this is, we'll send out this picture for you, and I would encourage you to print it out or maybe make your own drawing of it. You can have a little art project this week and have this picture someplace where you can see it, where you can refer to it. You might notice that even as I'm talking about these different neurological states, you might notice an activation in your body. And so just, yes, some people notice that, like, oh yeah, even talking about the fight response, I notice my body reacts. And so notice in this moment, right now, what might you need to come back to your social engagement? So is that taking a few deep breaths? Is that maybe mobilizing a little and moving your body in a way that feels good? Is it taking a little stretch? Drinking some water. So in every moment, becoming aware, our body is constantly giving us information. And the more we slow down and pay attention to that, the more choice we start to open ourselves up to. Emma, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Well, I just had a comment, reaction to what you're saying, and to this diagram, and this. Yeah, I'm just having a reaction, and it's quite hard, and I'm very aware of my body. And I want to learn how to regulate better, and especially around the dissociation and the collapse. It feels very tender to see that. I live a lot in that place, and it just feels really triggering to see the other places that I don't live in.
So are you noticing some heat in your body?
Yeah, some tears.
Some tears. So that's a release. So just let it be there. Let it come. That's welcome.
Thank you.
And even the action of saying, of speaking, of naming it. Hey, I'm noticing a reaction. Like, what did you notice in even saying those words?
Fear to speak up, even.
Fear. And
but you validate it and like calm it down. I'm taking too much time. That's my story loads in my head.
So yeah, so maybe bringing your attention to your breath and I noticed like keep doing the fanning if that feels good, and if the tears want to come, let them be there. Yeah, many of us were not taught how to be in that safe side of the nervous system. We weren't given tools to resource ourselves. And you're all here and you're learning. And just that choice of being here is shifting patterns. So there's a lot happening even without us being conscious. Did I see another hand? Oh, yeah, Amanda.
This is not my first introduction, but my first introduction was from my brain injury rehab doctor, who offered me tools to directly stimulate the vagus nerve in order to bring down the anxiety. So anyway, it's great to see it in a new context. What I'm noticing is how often we maybe encounter someone who's in a fight, flight, or freeze or fawn, and we try to tell them to like snap out of it. What's wrong with you? Why can't you just be happy? You know, like, and we just don't have an understanding of what it actually takes to move. And I'm noticing that maybe that's the space where, you know, someone's experiencing, obviously your nervous system's experiencing some sort of trauma or perception of threat. And if we're stuck there, we can be called playing the victim. It's like, what's wrong with you? Why are you playing the victim? And what's really kind of going on is we don't have a language around this. We don't have a way of talking about this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's very easy to be judged when you're in that space. But really inspiring to start to hear the idea of self-regulation. Like, okay, what do I need in this moment? Whether it's taking a breath or turning off the camera or stretching or, you know, calling a friend. But it occurs to me that like really the first and most important piece about even learning this is the shame that it starts to dissipate about being in those states. Mm-hmm. That it's a normal body response.
Absolutely. And the nervous system is designed to do this. It's designed to go into a fight-flight response. It's designed to go into a freeze response or a shutdown response in order to keep us safe and prevent us from feeling harm or feeling pain. And so we don't go into these stress responses by choice. It's how our system is designed. And so just acknowledging that and giving, like, you might even just put your hands on your body and say thank you to your body for responding the ways that it has in the past, and that it was designed to take care of you. And then from that place of compassion, we can then start to make different choices. Okay, I don't need you to shut down right now. Okay, what else is possible? And you might even, you know, draw this diagram out and write in some notes for between each of these states. Like, what do you use in order to regulate, to move from one state to another? And start to identify what are the different tools that you have. And as you say, like, the more tools we become aware of, then when we're in that place, we have something to turn to. And if we see someone who is dysregulated, a great question is, how can I support you right now? Instead of coming in thinking we know what the best thing is, how can I support you? What do you need right now? So shifting our language. Let me just check the time. There's a lot more that we can talk about here, and I'm going to pause it there so we can move into the next piece. But please feel free to share more in the Facebook group, and we can keep this conversation going. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Michael.
Great, thank you, Robin, for that wonderful insight. Every time I hear it, it lands a bit more. So I hope it's landing for other people. So we'd like to kind of have some space now to start to look at how some of this feels in the body. And when we're talking about the wheel of consent, we're often talking about dynamics of giving and receiving. And in order to be able to do that successfully, we need to be able to connect with what we want and what we're okay with. And part of that is about being able to feel in our body when we have a yes and when we have a no. So we're going to transition to spending a little bit of time with our yeses and nos for the rest of the session today. So we've been doing a lot of sitting and listening, so I'd like to invite something that's maybe a little bit more felt in the body. So I'd like to invite us, just wherever we are in our space, just to start bringing the word yes into your consciousness. You might want to repeat that word in your mind a few times. Just roll it around your mind and notice how that feels to have the yes in your mind. And you might want to try saying the yes out loud. Notice how it feels to speak the yes, to say it. And you might want to try moving with your yes. Notice how it feels to move your yes. You might want to move it around. You might want to try standing up. You might want to stay sitting down, but trying your yes in different ways. Yes in movement, yes in stillness. And then bringing yourself back to a place of relative stillness and bringing the word no into your mind. Just thinking no to yourself a few times. How does no feel inside when you think it? Noticing where it is in your body. And then inviting you to speak your no. How does your no sound out loud? Repeating your no. Trying your no in different ways. And inviting you to move your no. You might want to get up and move around. How does your no feel when you're sitting? How does your no feel when you're standing? How does it feel to be with your no? And then bringing yourself back to a place of relative stillness. Allowing your nervous system to regulate. Doing whatever you need to do to bring yourself back towards that place of social engagement. And I'd like to invite you to share very quickly any noticings. You can unmute yourself and speak, or you can type it in the chat. What did you notice about your yes and your no? What did you notice about how your yes felt, how your no felt? Yes, I've got Emma. You got your hand raised?
Oh no, I hadn't. But
Right.
I was
No.
saying yes to something else before.
Okay.
Yeah, I do want to share. The yes, I couldn't say yes out loud.
Mm.
I couldn't say yes out loud, and when I was, just couldn't say it out loud. It was just all inside.
I was going to ask, what did you notice in your body when you couldn't say it out loud?
I notice now I feel tearful, quite shamey, quite ashamed myself when I couldn't say it out loud immediately. And I was judging, I was watching everybody. That's my hypervigilance, just watching everyone.
Great noticing. Thank you for sharing. And we've got some things in the chat: expansion versus contraction. Yeah, sometimes the yes can feel more expanded than the no. My no feels a lot more triggering and tender. Yes felt more like celebrating. Yeah. What else did people notice about their yes and their no? Adam.
I felt the yes was really flowing. There was a lot of liquidity with it, and the no was like, I felt it very much in my jaw, but I felt pleasure in saying no as well, and moving like this. It was quite straight and hard, but I found a pleasure in it as well.
Great noticing. Yeah, thank you. What else did people notice?
For me, I couldn't even like embody the no. I kept thinking, how can I make this work to a yes? And then when I stood up, then I was like, okay, this is my no. It's like taking a stand. That was the only way I could actually feel the no. Otherwise, I was like trying to make something happen for a yes.
Yeah. So when you stood up, your no felt more present?
Yeah. Then I felt grounded and unmoving. Like before, I kept kind of fluctuating around, and once I stood, then yeah, it was more stable.
Great noticing. Yeah. So changing how our body is in movement or in stillness can make a difference to how the yes and the no feels. We've got one in the chat. My yes felt in motion and my no felt stuck and immobilized. My yes felt peaceful and my no felt satisfying. I was surprised to find strength in no. Yeah. Who else felt strength in no? Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, sorry, who was that?
Sorry, it's
Thea.
hard to
Yes. Yep,
jump.
great. Thank you. Yes, please go ahead, Thea.
Yeah. I think my experience of connecting to yes was like also noticing a lot of kind of like hesitancy in the way my like body wanted to like hold itself as I was connecting to this, or being really like timid. And then I guess the questions I've been kind of, I keep connecting to this, I guess, part of myself from before I was born that just like didn't want to be born. Yeah, like perinatal stuff and like fear of life and themes around this, and dissociation. And so the yes being really timid, and then the no was kind of just there at first, and then became really like playful, and like playful and like quite young as well. And it felt really nice to connect with these parts of myself that like don't want to be here for like very good reason, and to just kind of connect with that in a playful way. And I was kind of like moving around like this.
Great, thank you for sharing. Yeah, so there's some really, just those two simple words, yes and no, can really bring up really strong and varied responses in our bodies. And this is why being able to notice what's happening in the body can really help us to be able to give that language. So even this process that we're going through now of just describing what we noticed when we said yes or when we said no, or even when we thought it, is a really important part in this process of starting to notice what's happening in our body, starting to notice our body reactions. And the reason that's helpful when it comes to working with the wheel of consent is that there's a real importance around knowing your limits. And there's a couple of people have talked about being able to honor their no. There's something in the chat about honoring memories of recently not honoring your no and going along with. And so in order to be able to know what you have a yes to, you also need to be able to know what you're a no to, and to know how that feels in your body so that you can speak up, to be able to speak up for that. So that's why we wanted to spend just a little quick flavour of just drawing together some of these threads that Robin's been talking about, of where we are in the nervous system and how we shift through the nervous system, and how just those simple words, yes or no, can move us around the nervous system, and noticing what we need to be able to then get ourselves back to a place of safety. I'm curious to know as well what people noticed about how they moved through their nervous system, in terms of what Robin was describing earlier when we were going with the yes and going with the no. What did you notice about where you were in your nervous system? Did you notice yourself in one place, more likely to be in one place of the nervous system with a no and one place in the yes, or were you moving around? Again, feel free to share. Yes, Hannah.
Yeah, with the no, I could really start to feel like a sense of immobilization, and somehow my saliva in my mouth was getting really dry, and I had this sense of being in this immobilized state, really, or like slowly getting there, and realizing how my body would somehow go into this immobilization with fear, actually, somehow.
Great noticing, thank you. What else did people notice about their nervous system with those two words?
There's one comment in the chat box, Michael. I don't know if you saw.
Oh, right. Sorry, I missed that. So yes, we've got this triggered recent memories of not honouring my no and going along with a situation where I self-abandoned continuously for the duration of the relationship. And this created total immobilization in all parts of my life. Yeah. So that can have a real impact on how we live our life. Okay. So I'm conscious that we're moving towards the end of the session, and we wanted to leave a little time just to talk about the home practice, and to give you a sense of what you might be able to work with in that. So I'm going to hand back to Robin for that.
Great, thanks. So this week we have 3 different home practices that you can experiment with. We'll have a home practice about noticing your nervous system and seeing if you can identify some of these different neurological states as you move about your day. And feel free to journal about that or share in the Facebook group about what you're noticing. We have a journaling exercise to write down what are some of the tools or the practices that you use to either co-regulate or self-regulate. And so starting to make a list of the different resources that you have around that. And then the third is, let me just check, noticing your yes and your no in your daily life. So as you're interacting, or you are either with others or in your own space, you might just notice, when are you a yes, and what's happening in your body with that yes, or when are you responding with a no and what's happening. You might experiment with that on your own, like, what do I want to eat for dinner? Should I have this or this? And see what happens in your body. So different ways of bringing more awareness to the reactions that are happening and are there that we might not pay attention to otherwise. And then we'll also be sending out a short 10-minute video for you to watch before our next session. And so this will be a theory piece on domain, boundary, and limit. and what each of those terms mean. And so this will be a way that we can share some of the theory with you before we come together, and it gives us more time to be in practice together. So all of those things will go out later today. And then I'll also send out the picture of the polyvagal theory. Lizzie, did you have a question? Was that a hand or, okay. All right, so, and then if you want to be, we'll send out the Facebook invite. If you're on Facebook and you want to be included in the group, please send a friend request to either me or to Michael. And particularly if you use a name on Facebook that's different from the name that you use to register, please send a message saying, hey, this is me, add me to the group, so we can find you. And we'll also do that today. So I think that's it.
Great. Thank you, Robin. So before we close for today, I'd like to invite a one-word checkout. So I'd like to invite you to type in the chat box one word of where you are, what you're taking with you at the end of the session today. Gratitude, appreciation, goodness, reinvigorated, hopeful, thank you, awareness and radical care, softness, curious, thoughtful, curious, appreciation, tender, expanded community, vulnerable, bubbling, wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. What a diverse range of words. Thank you very much, everybody, for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you in the Facebook group if you're on Facebook, and on the call next week. Enlightenment, gratitude. Oh, they're still coming. Sense of light at the end of a very dark tunnel.
Ooh.
Wonderful.
Thank you, everybody.
Wonderful.
Have a beautiful week, and we'll see you next week.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
And we'll hang out here for a minute if there are any questions. Or...
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next week.
Thank you. Bye.